The full episode is now available on Patreon and YouTube memberships. Please see the link in the description for more details.
And we are back to discuss quite a few things this time around, but first, Preston, I gotta get your opinion on the fan art cover that went viral over the weekend from infamous Ice and Fire artist Artaj Altanos, who is known throughout the community as one of the best at illustrating the series. You can see his most recent contributions in the most recent Fire and Blood version, and I think he also did a few things for George. Of course, I'm talking about the Winds of Winter fan art. I put out a video a couple of days ago, but for those of you who didn't watch it, essentially my theory here is that he may know something is coming soon, so he's doing his own fan art version to throw his hat in the ring at having a chance to illustrate the actual cover for Winds when it does get announced, and yeah. But Preston, you saw the fan art cover. What did you think?
I have. All right, what do I think? First of all, it's an incredible piece of artwork, and I'm not talking just like it's the dragon glass blade, but also like just looking at the background and the gloom of fog that kind of looks like trees or maybe rain, like, or both, like, in the background. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of art. It is definitely fan art. The cover will not look like this. And
No, I love it.
well, the reason it won't look like this is, generally speaking, when a new book comes out in a series, what they like to do, because they know that fans want to have matching books, so what they'll do is they'll reprint all of the books, with when they do the new one in a new style, so then everyone has to go back and buy the old books again, so that they'll have matching books. If you go back, like, Game of Thrones is in a completely different style from A Clash of Kings and A Storm of Swords. Those are the two books that match. After that, Feast for Crows is a completely different style, and then A Dance for Dragons is a completely different style. And now, every time they come out with a new, like, look, they reprint the previous ones. So the Dance with Dragons cover, there is a version of A Game of Thrones, A Clash of Kings, A Storm of Swords, and A Feast for Crows in the Dance of Dragons style. And in the Feast for Crows style, there is the previous books. In fact, there's actually a mock-up Dance with Dragons in the Feast for Crows style that was never used.
I didn't know that.
Storm of Swords, Clash of Kings, there is a Game of Thrones that looks like, that's in the same style as A Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords. And then Game of Thrones is by itself. I don't think there's anything in the Game of Thrones original style going forward, or in the Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords style going forward. So the thing is like this book, it's somewhat in the Dance with Dragons style. Not exactly, like, but the font and everything, and how George R. R. Martin is put on the page is in that style, though he's taken his art to fill the page rather than having it be kind of a single item in the middle. But nonetheless, like, everything would be different. The font, the art, everything, because then they're going to reprint all the previous ones so that people will buy the previous ones in order to have them match.
I would say that's ridiculous and silly, but at the same time, you're correct in the sense, because I'm like that with the Game of Thrones Blu-ray DVDs. For example, I don't know if you guys know this, but Best Buy put out these slipcovers for the Blu-rays that have the house sigils on them. And I have all 5. And for some reason, after season 5, they stopped doing the house sigil Blu-ray slipcovers. So for example, for Game of Thrones season 2, I have the Greyjoy one from Best Buy, and for season 1 I have the Stark, for season 3 I have Targaryen, 4 Lannister, and 5 Bolton. And then they stopped doing it, and they started doing like a different cover, and Best Buy just didn't release any more. I tried so hard to get the House Baratheon one for season 2, but it was only released in Australia. And as I'm listening to this, I'm like, that's so really, but then at the same time, I'm like that. So I see what you mean.
Now I'm going to send you a photo, and maybe you can use this on. But this is what in your bookshelf having first editions is going to look like.
Ooh, okay. I kind of miss the old art style. I kind of do.
Right, just how ugly and like unmatching that is,
Mhm.
you know, and how like I don't know if ugly is a strong enough word, but it's just like how off that is. Like even the Bantam book like icon like doesn't match. Like nothing matches in any respect with the like not where George R. R. Martin is on the side of the book, not where the pictures align, not even between A Clash of Kings and A Storm of Swords, which is the same book style, are the pictures at the right height. You know, like everything is off. And it's cluttered and weird, right?
Yeah.
And they do this on purpose so that you have to like, if you want matching books, you got to go back and buy the previous ones. So it's just not like that cover art is just not it. It's just not Winds of Winter. Like that's just where it is. There's a few other things. If you actually like, if you really want to be a stickler, the picture isn't centered and little things like that. Yeah, like
You really want to be a stickler.
No, I mean,
what's the Game of Thrones cover? Is that's not the Iron Throne? That's
yeah,
what
no,
is that?
I thought it was supposed to be the Iron Throne.
No, there's no way. There's not enough swords. It's not insanely ridiculous. Is that the Iron Throne?
That's supposed to be the Iron Throne, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like maybe some kind of like chair in Winterfell or something because it looks more Winterfell-ish.
So yeah, this podcast you're gonna have to throw up a lot of pictures here.
I will. Clash of Kings is Stannis and Storm of Swords. Is that? I'm assuming that's Hoster Tully's funeral.
Let's see here. Yeah, Stannis, and yeah, it does look like. I'll have to look at. Hold on, a Storm of Swords cover, but because I'm like the Game of Thrones. So like the Iron Throne on the Game of Thrones cover is like the swords are very orderly in a actual like boxy chair. It's actually rather a much more practical chair than like anything that you kind of see.
It's literally like just a normal chair that looks like they carved swords into it instead of it being made of swords. That's why I thought it was like some kind of chair in Winterfell because it looks very wintry.
No, it's supposed to be the Iron Throne, but it's like more practical. But keep in mind that like when a Game of Thrones was written, it wasn't kind of canon that there was all of these barbs cutting everybody. Right? That hadn't been written yet as a thing. I don't think. Let me do a quick search of the actual like throne itself if there's anything about it.
Actually, no. When the earliest I remember the Iron Throne being very prickly was when they talk about the Mad King and they call him King Scab. When did King Scab first come up? I believe it was the first book, right?
That kind of stuff is gonna be like the Jaime story that he tells to Brienne and things like that. But I'm trying to think like, if anything, I'm trying like something like Eddard 11 where he's actually like sitting on the throne. You'd think that it would be mentioned, right? But Ned's sitting on the throne, and it just says like, through the high and narrow windows of the Red Keep's cavernous throne room, the light of the sunset spilled across the room, and it doesn't actually like say, like Ned never describes like being on the throne as, let me see here. Oh, here we go. Here's what it actually says. Ned could feel, this is his description of it in A Game of Thrones. Ned could feel steel against the fingers as he leaned forward. Beneath each finger was a blade. That actually is in the artwork. The blade sticking up on the armrests on the Game of Thrones book. The points of twisted swords fanning out like talons from arms of the throne. After 3 centuries, they were still sharp enough to cut. The Iron Throne was full of traps and for the unwary. The song said it had taken 1,000 blades to make it, heated white hot. Hammering took 59 days. The end was a hunched black beast made of razor edges and barbs and ribbons and sharp metal. A chair that could kill a man, and had, if the stories could be believed. what Eddard was doing sitting there, he would not comprehend. Yet, as he sat, these people looked for justice. So, like, yeah, he mentions that that's like filled with like whatever barbs and cuts on the fingers and stuff. But like, having read that, I can understand why the cover art is the way it is. Like it, you know, you're not imagining this like this is like one small paragraph and then he moves on, right? And you're not imagining this like this behemoth that we see in artwork, the later artwork, where it's just like looks like hell, like sitting in there.
We
like
actually had this conversation the other day about like how sometimes the artwork makes Ice and Fire look way more like insanely, it kind of over exaggerates some of the elements of the medieval fantasy genre, especially the castles. I forgot who drew the Dragonstone castle. We actually had this discussion when the illustrated book came out, and I'm like, what is that? And you're like, that's Dragonstone.
Dragonstone, we probably get the most description of Dragonstone than any other place. And Dragonstone is just the most ostentatious, like, craziness, where towers are shaped like dragons, and you're walking in a dragon's mouth, and they're all angled off, and dragons' tails and stuff, and the castle looks like a entangled dragons.
Yeah, and I know the art like put that down there, but I gotta say, I like what HBO with Game of Thrones did better, where it's just like a unique looking castle that doesn't go overboard with the dragon aesthetic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Maybe you know, I wouldn't say that, like, you know, when I first said that, okay, you know, maybe the cover of a Game of Thrones, you know, actually fit the description of the book. No, the description of the book is a little worse than that, but it's also not the huge behemoth that we see with what's the famous Mark Simonotti's like huge tower, right?
I'm gonna be honest with you. You're actually more aware of all the cover stuff than I am. Are you gonna make like your own separate video on like the history of the art of the covers? Because that would be great. I would actually be very interested.
Oh,
in that
would be a good.
Because I didn't know any of this. Like my books, which are in storage, don't have these. They aren't like these are like the original covers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, first editions.
Yeah, mine are like I don't know if they're like set like reprints or whatever, but it's Game of Thrones. It's like the blue cover. It's like the blue one. Which one? Where is it? It's not blue. It has the sword on it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
What you're saying. Yeah. I think those might actually even be. There's also like British versus U.S. editions, but the blue version with the sword going sideways.
Yeah, there's also one where it's the direwolf sigil on it. That one looks very old, and Clash of Kings has a crown on it. And I really don't like when HBO came out with the show. They put Peter Dinklage on everything. I was not a fan of those, but I would actually pay. Oh, there's another one. There's one where it's the beloved fantasy saga begins. Blah 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 blah. This one here. I'm gonna have to show all these pictures. I'm completely utterly okay with that. This one here. If you're gonna do a video on this, you're gonna need these too. That one's pretty cool. I love it when they have like those pictures on there. But honestly, I would pay Mr. Altanos here to do like his own version of a Game of Thrones with like what he thinks should be on there, because the dragon glass here is just so fucking cool, and I would be completely and utterly okay buying a brand new book set with all his own covers.
Yeah, I mean he's incredible. He's incredible in that. But yeah, that's the picture you sent me was a Game of Thrones in the style of a Clash of Kings and a Storm of Swords. Yeah.
Okay. So the one I have is the one with George R.R. Martin, Feast for Crows, and the Feast for Crows has like the chalice, and the other one and the Storm of Swords has the helmet. So those are the ones I have.
Yeah, that's the Dance with Dragons style for Feast for Crows, Storm of Swords. So the reprint then. Yeah, it's But so unfortunately, I mean, what's really down to it all is what you really want to know is, does this mean that the Winds of Winter is coming out. And no, that's not what it means.
It could. Well, I don't know if you saw my small video that I put out a couple days ago. In it, George did say that he was like, a good chunk of the 3/4 of the way done. Of course, George has said shit like this before. My thought is, let me put one more thing in here. My thought is that, okay, maybe he didn't work with George, but maybe George's team or the company behind the books, fine. But you know who else did that? Is Elio and Linda. Of course, Elio and Linda are the original superfans. They have worked with George and met him. I'm sure Mr. Altanos has not. But even people like Elio and Linda, who have done some amount of work for George, no matter how small it was at the time, they still got some of the episodes early. I remember this is one of the reasons I strongly dislike Linda. I don't know if you remember this, but she spoiled that Brienne killed Stannis in season 5 because she got into a Twitter beef with somebody.
Remember,
Right. So,
yeah.
And they were getting the episodes early, despite at the time only doing a little bit with George. They didn't do that much with him. This was before The World of Ice and Fire came out.
Right, but did they get because you know how reviewers can get a lot of episodes early?
They're not reviewers. Like,
pack?
who the fuck?
I know, but like you could still have access to that kind of same stash or whatever.
Fair.
So I don't know.
Fair. Maybe George gave... I don't know. I just think this is like maybe a hint that this year... Of course, once again, Mr. Alt knows I DM'd him privately. He used to message me back all the time during Season 8, so we do have some bit of a rapport there. I asked him privately, and he said, I don't know anything. This is just me doing fan art. But I got the hint that he couldn't say anything due to an NDA, so who knows? But... yeah, no. We'll see. We'll see what happens, huh?
We'll see.
2023. Here we go, baby.
No, I would not say that. I mean, even if you say like, look, realistically, like, okay, even if George got into COVID writing mode, okay, which COVID writing mode was incredible, right? All right, it would still take him a year. And then the publishing stuff takes a few months after that. So if he went into hyper mode, like I could see the very beginning of 2024, but like that's if you got into that mode. But that would be that's at least a year away. Realistically, I don't think he's in the COVID writing mode. So, give yourself a realistic expectation, something like 2026,